we live in the richest country in the world, sitting on top of the world's largest energy resources, but that means we have freedom, and they don't like it. Van Jones, the communist, self-avowed communist radical, he said, this is a quote, also in the book, among many others, the green economy will start off as a small subset, and we will push it and push it and push it until it becomes the engine for, wait for it, transforming the whole society. Yes, he said that. It always comes down to, this is the vehicle for doing to this terribly flawed transgressor of America that they have to fundamentally transform. This is the vehicle. This is the excuse. Your freedoms are simply nothing you can be trusted with.
And then meanwhile, Enron, and of course you briefly worked for him for about a month and you quit and exposed it all on record, and valiantly so. They wrote the cap and trade carbon tax fraud, literally Madoff level. Going back to California, they tried the same scam there, and in their memos it said, we turn their power off, then they perceive it's more valuable, they'll put up with a triple price increase. Ha, 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 we're raping these schmucks. I mean, so you've got the big money, it's just not free market money, who wants this government monopoly. I think that's the key to defeat these little green devils, is to expose that they could care less about the environment. This is all a way just to run everybody's lives.
Yeah, the temperature after cap and trade will be, according to everybody, whatever it would have been. So we know it's not about that. It's an excuse. And the point is, the president comes out there, and this is another quote. He said, some of America's biggest companies support this, by way of saying, so it must be a good idea. Of course, that's usually his position, right? No one's ever asked publicly, okay, but why? Why is GE, which has Enron's old windmills, which nobody wants unless you mandate and heavily subsidize them, why is the gas... Did you know the gas industry is actually running these ads calling for more windmills? Because more windmills simply mean more gas. You can't really dial a coal plant up and down to meet the schizophrenia of the wind, but you can more easily with gas.
Oh, yeah, they know the wind doesn't work, doesn't transfer the power. They love it. Because exactly, the gas refining companies, they love it. They go, sure, idiots, get rid of coal. Shut down what produces 51% of our power. Shut down our competition. We love it.
Well, you're right about creating artificial scarcity, and the seeming paradox of it, and business is pushing the idea of scarcity. But you also pointed out why businesses can benefit from scarcity. Now, what I did in the book is I pointed out this is by no means, and it's obviously the world's second oldest profession, but this is also has a very long history in the U.S., and there are left-wingers who point out that the history of the progressive movement was the corporate tie-ups to keep competition out, to lock in a nice livelihood for themselves with their buddies in government. And this is absolutely reminiscent of that for reasons I go into. And, again, it started with the railroads and then various other industries. We've now got it with something extremely important to your lives and your family's lives and our national security and your family's security, and that is energy. They're seeking to script scarcity, dangerous scarcity, in the name of a boogeyman that keeps changing, and now it's national security.
But then they'll be the savior with your energy allotment if you're poor. Once they make you poor, now you're dependent on them, and you'll vote. You want power in the winter, old lady? Vote to ban the Second Amendment.
Well, I tell you this. This is a very big tent, probably for a lot of reasons. There's a strange thing going on when you look at why are the population zealots so supportive of this? Why are the fallen communists so supportive? The persistent communists, the Greens, the Reds, the pro-tax, the anti-development. There is a very broad coalition here that I want folks to think about this. Why is this extremely disparate group, along with some of, as the president said, America's biggest companies, pushing something? You're not at the table to get essentially screwed. They're negotiating you out of the deal, but at your expense. All of them have this agenda in common. Why? And the why is, again, the point of the book. This is a vehicle for their long-held wish list of organizing society. And there will be trade-offs, yes, involved, and your life will be very different. And when they orchestrate collapse on one level or another, it's true. They rush in with more state as the solution. Now, the president is lecturing Spain to cut it out right now because he doesn't want them to drag us down, be the next Greece, and drag us down with them, because he's got a fundamental transformation to impose here. But last week in a Spanish newspaper, La Gaceta, there was a full-paged article, the headline of which was, quote, direct translation, Spain admits that green economy as sold to Obama is a disaster.
Yeah, I saw that. So here's the deal. Their globalization, their command destruction, their neo-feudalism has been too good at destroying things, and so it's blowing up in their face before they get all the vice grips in place.
I have to say that when the state controls power, the state controls an awful lot. And what this agenda does is transfer basic energy use and production and transmission, all these decisions from individuals, producers, and consumers to the state. And when you do that, you are giving up an awful lot of your liberties. Now, I married a European. She's from a country where they have a joke, at least they're still laughing for now, that it's a good thing we don't have all the cars we pay for. Where would we put them? What they mean by that in Denmark is, through the special assessment and the VAT, they have doubled the price of cars there in order to force scarcity upon the public, because it's a wealthy country and they would have all these cars.
Oh, no.
The statists didn't care for that. And so what they did is they, in effect, doubled the price of a vehicle to force the population out of automobility. Now, when you start letting go of automobility, pretty soon you'll find yourself letting go of control of very basic decisions like the temp, as you pointed out. Now, when you let go of things like this, please don't be surprised when you wake up one morning and there's an awful lot more that's just gone.
Well, no, I mean, the social engineers admit that they want to have one-child policy, that they want to decide what we're going to be when we grow up. They're literally organizing all of human society in a nightmarish way. I mean, we know when people try to organize things, you know, from top down, it always is a disaster. But they want to wreck things. And that's my next question to you, because you're, you know, an insider who really studies this. Every incumbent, whether Republican or Democrat, is being thrown out of office, whether it's Specter, whether it's what, you know, just happened in a congressional seat in Hawaii, whether it's Massachusetts, it doesn't matter. I've never seen such a realignment against the establishment. So they've really, you know, Obama was the fake revolution against Bush. Now people realize, my God, Obama is the real takeover. And so people are really, I mean, Zbigniew Brzezinski last week said, our global governance is in trouble. He said the people have finally woken up worldwide to us. We're now in trouble. I don't know if you saw that speech, but they admit they're in trouble. How do you see them striking back? I mean, because from every way I slice this, we are now really at the make it or break it crossroads.
Well, there is a real push. And again, I was in the room in The Hague in November 2000 when Jacques Chirac gave his speech calling Kyoto the Global Warming Treaty that covered 35 industrial titans like Iceland, Luxembourg, Belgium, Slovenia, Slovakia, but not China, India, Mexico, Brazil, and so on. I was in the room with some members of Congress and a few other Americans who were the only ones surprised when Jacques Chirac, who at the time was the president of France, said Kyoto was the first component of an authentic global governance. Jim Sensenbrenner is a Wisconsin Republican who marched outside and held an impromptu press conference that I stood there watching the left-wing press swearing at him. The Guardian reporter was swearing bollocks at him. As Sensenbrenner said, if you want to keep us out of something, call it global governance. Well, I said the Guardian noted that Obama's diplomats were telling EU diplomats there may be a delay on Kyoto 2 in the United States because he's considering something called a congressional executive agreement. That was, I heard you mention NAFTA before. NAFTA is precedent. It's never been tried, the constitutionality of this. It did not get to this. But the issue of Congress waiving Article 2, Section 2 ratification, advice and consent, the two-thirds ratification. NAFTA was a treaty between three countries that Congress just said is not a treaty. And they granted something called fast-track authority, which is a suggestion of what should be in it and a promise to give it an up or down, no amendment, no filibuster, 50+1 vote in both houses. Now, if you do this, and the administration apparently is telling Europeans we may have to try this because we're going to call Kyoto 2 not a treaty, you're going to have a problem because it's then left up to the courts, and you know how activist they become. But what you're talking about is you have one bite at the apple. Don't trust the courts. You saw campaign finance. Oh, don't worry, the court will fix it. Don't trust them. What you have to do is block it at the granting of fast track for Kyoto 2. They won't call it Kyoto 2. They're going to call it Johannesburg because that's where the World Environment Summit is in 2012. They're actually going to try to get Kyoto 2, according to lefty advisors to Obama like this fella Nigel Purvis, who's counseling him, just declared this next key global warming treaty not a treaty. It quacks, flies, and does everything odious like a duck. But if you get Congress to say it's not a treaty, and the only difference is it means no two-thirds ratification. Well, that's your one bite at the apple. The courts aren't going to help you, is my guess. And you have a 50+1 requirement, and it would take, you see incumbents being thrown out, but I just don't know, given the way, you didn't see the Democrats.
So they're going to come at us with a violation of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, treason. Like this article, top official says feds may not process illegals referred from Arizona. So, citizens have no rights, but if illegal aliens get arrested, we won't pick them up. So it's the same thing here. The federal government just doesn't care what we say or who we elect or what we do. They're just going to do it because they're God. Expanding on that and, trying to see where you see this going. What about the Republicans? I mean, they've got a big hand in allowing this to happen as well.
Yeah, you've got a problem. Right now, for example, this week we're supposed to have a vote. Just requires 51 or 50 votes, not 60.